Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 295, and today we're doing battle with Pink Elites. And so, Garen and friends have been around in some way, shape, or form in the game since the dawn of time, since the beginning of Runeterra. These friends have been running around together between Garen and the Battlesmith boosting the Elites, and then the Vanguard Bannerman boosting your whole team. They have generated this really strong mid-rangey kind of strategy as to where we're able to build up units that are just bigger than our opponents. And so if we're playing against the Nox and aggro decks coming at us with Legion Rearguards, we're ideally going to be able to put a 4/4 in front of a Legion Rearguard so our unit survives and theirs does not. That lets us generate the virtual card advantage to where if we imagine that our opponent has two Legion Rearguards on the board and we have a single 4/4, we are potentially shutting down both of their 3 attack units, their 2/3 attack cards with our single 4 health unit, getting that card advantage that the control players love to do so much. That also kind of ties in with a lot of the removal in the format. If your opponent's trying to come at you with, say, a Mystic Shot, you can't Mystic Shot a 3 health unit, right? And so if we're able to generate some larger scale, some larger sized units across the board, we're hoping to kind of make our opponent's removal spells a little bit less effectual and maybe require them to use 2 spells instead of 1, again helping us generate that kind of virtual card advantage. And so this idea, this thought, this theme has been in the game forever. The place where elites typically struggle, where they typically run into problems, are 2 separate things. Number one, the deck isn't particularly interactive. If you want to look through our unit list, it tends to just be a bunch of stats. The only interactive unit on their own that we have are going to be these Silverwing Vanguards and Swiftwing Flights. Only having 2 units that can kind of naturally interact with your opponent isn't very much, and so we have to kind of count on our spells for that to where we have single combats and concerted strikes. Again, not a ton of interaction, but this is a place where the deck has typically been weak. The next place is that you have to have either an elusive, an a rally, or an overwhelm. And so if you want to imagine you're playing against Nora or you're playing against the new Tristana decks that can just completely flood the board, how are we going to deal damage through those? And so if we have, say, 6 4/4s on the board and our opponent only has 6 1/1s, if we have a commanding board presence, everything we do is bigger than our opponent, we make our attack, they block everything, and then we don't deal any damage. And so we've always said you have to either elusive, you have to rally, or you have to overwhelm, and we do have the rallies in this deck now. Garen has been the traditional source of rallies, but we're also playing the champion strength as the second form. And so as you take a look at this deck list, you take a peek at it and you say, Bust, this is nothing new, this is nothing ideal, this is nothing novel, why are you bringing this to us here today? And I think one of the things that gets kind of like left in the dust as you're looking at the various elites decks is you have the opportunity to play other factions. And in this format right now, the kind of place that you're going to run into trouble and run into issues is from big spells out of your opponent. And so if you're running into a Buried in the Ice from a Frayed Lord deck, if you're running into Vengeances, if you're running into Shadow Isles Tristana and their atrocities, you typically don't have any great ways to stop those big high impact spells, and we're looking to include Deny into the mix today as a means to come in and deal with that and to hopefully shut those things down. And so traditionally, if you want to say our deck facing up against what would be a Shadow Isles Tristana deck now, we attack, they block and don't care, they don't take any damage, pass the turn. They take their turn refilling, they put a bunch of crappy units on the board they don't care about, then pass the turn back, we attack, they block everything, they refill, no problem. That cycle goes back and forth for a little bit. Eventually, opponent is going to throw a Tristana at us for like 16 damage and just end the game. And so adding in things like Deny are going to hopefully let us be able to take advantage of those themes. And so before we jump in, I did want to say the Runeterra Open Tournament is coming up, the Open Tournament out of the beta season. I am looking to play Elites in that event. I feel like I was kind of up in the air and wanting to play Elites in the previous seasonals. I didn't pull the trigger on it because the Aatrox Kane matchup was so bad. But I think we're landing in a space now to where it can be fairly promising and fairly compelling. And I look at it as a third deck, much in the same vein we looked at Gangplank Sejuani in the previous format, as to where it's a deck that doesn't have any real, high valued, high percentage win rate matchups, but it also doesn't have any real low win rate matchups. And so it's pretty close to 50-50s across the board. And it's a nice deck to where if your opponent says, okay, well, I'm just going to leave this deck up against every single opponent, then it's a deck I feel pretty confident in playing against a broad range of decks. It has game against the aggro decks, game against the mid-rangey decks, and hopefully with our denies has a little bit more game against the control decks and the likes of the big spell casters, if you will. And so this is what we're doing battle with today. We're on account number 2, so we're not going to pay to win. The main account is all premiumed up. That's going to have to be enough for us today. We're going to jump on into battle. And so, yeah, to spoiler alert, the Runeterra Open, the thing I'm looking to play is I'm going to play Sunburn. That's the Leona deck. I love it so much. I'm still incredibly happy with how the deck performs. We're most certainly going to be playing it. I was looking to want to play... the likes of Varus, like Varus Pantheon, but I didn't really want to pull the trigger on it. I haven't been super happy with our experiences with the cultists, and so I think I'm going to switch it back and just still play that Pantheon Shyvana deck that we pulled out a little while ago. And if we're going to play Pantheon Shyvana, then you can't include, say, Kale in your Elites deck, but... I don't think Kale is ultimately necessary in these things, and so I'm happy with just the pink, just a little bit of pink in here. But all right, let's jump on in. Interesting space here against Nora Nar is if you want to play the Ramhound first. If it was our attack token, if it was our turn 1 attack token, there's a real reason to consider passing on it. Since your opponent has the opportunity to start dropping like pokey sticks on it. Now, I'm going to take the slightly dangerous route here and just go ahead and drop a Battlesmith. Ideally, he's not going to pokey stick down the Ramhound, but I think the future value that we'll get out of the Battlesmith is probably a little bit better than worrying about the Ramhound falling down. And so we could have considered open attacking on that turn. My thought was if opponent wants to come in and just play a Nora, then we can probably still attack into her a little bit, but getting shut down for a single point of damage isn't really the end of the world. All right, what do we got here? Unfortunately, no other elite play. It would be really nice to have the additional bro to drop on the board this turn. It's not the end of the world by any means, but would have been nice to drop the Vanguard Squire for free and then have an additional unit this round. Still not a terrible space to be in to be banking up that 3 mana as we're looking to drop the curve the rest of the way, if you will, between Garen, Jarvan, and Jarvan Daddy, Jarvan 3. And so it's, tough. It's close, but, if we pick up single combats or whatever now, we'll have a bit of game onto the board. And so with this, it kind of sucks to send our 3/3 unit into his 3/2 spider, but we're not playing a ton of combat tricks in here, right? We're just playing the 1 copy of Ranger's Resolve, and there's not a great opportunity for us to just sit around and wait with that guy. So we can hopefully kind of clear out the board a little bit, maybe fill out with some other higher valued elites, and potentially get something going in that fashion. Let's see if we can't just blow him up with Garen and a Judgment this game. That's the that's the way to bring the excitement out here.
The dragon will keep you safe.
All right, but how do we feel about this stuff? If he hits us with Scales of the Dragon, it's not that big of a deal. I'm really looking to just say not play Jarvan. They're just going to drop the Silverwing Vanguard this turn. They're all going to get boosted. And then we'll play Garen next turn. The thing being is, I like having Jarvan on the board before we play his dad, but that's not going to fit into the curve amazingly here. And just having Jarvan hook down the Scales of the Dragon isn't that spectacular. And so I'm kind of envisioning We just naturally play Jarvan 2 turns from now, and then we can drop the dad on our 2 attack tokens away on our turn 8. All right, big friends, let's get into battle. Ready to start swinging. Oh, not you. Let's get this 2 health unit. I want to keep our challenger on the board. Have to leave the battlesmith at home. This is the kind of space to where I would be pretty okay with just attacking with the battlesmith. He's done his work, right? He's put the bonuses out on the board. We don't need him to sit around and just generate value for us for the rest of the game. I'm not opposed to generating a little value, don't get me wrong, but it would be okay to come in and trade him away. The thing that I'm not excited about with the battlesmith is just having it get blocked by a Scales of the Dragon. He had another card he was about to snap off here, but he pulled it back. So not a bad spot to be in. Our Jarvan will be flipped whenever he comes down, ready to go with generating those cataclysms, and then should be decent here a couple turns from now. Like, we can just drop judgments if we want to. I don't think that that's going to be a thing, but the potential's there. Poor Garen, you're going down, my friend. About to get your earth scorched. Not bad, though. We got a pretty strong board as it is. Going to be tough for him to really formulate a relevant combat here. The question we'll have with this turn is, do we want to play Garen and then potentially Concerted Strike? And now we do. Since he's taken away our Jarvan and we're going to lose out on our scouts, we're just going to add Garen in here now. That's probably enough to just shut down his attacks for the turn. And then we'll get an open attack next round with Jarvan. Not attacking with anything else, huh? You're not bringing any of this thunder in on our Garen here? I feel you. I feel you. So let's see. We definitely want Garen to get a strike in here. There's probably not a lot of reason to worry about barriers here, right? I kind of have it in my head that we typically strike with the big unit last, and so I was looking to drop in the Snow Hare at first and then Garen second, but there's no real reason to worry about it here. All right, let's get a friendly unit on board. We still have plenty of mana for our Jarvan to come down on the attack. Maybe he'll drop something exciting here and we get a big play. Maybe he'll drop a Gnar on the board and we'll say LOL to that. That's what I'm here for, yo, to say LOL to your Gnars. Fuck. That's annoying. Oh, hit the 4 Demacia, though. Oh, get worked, son. Get worked. Sucks for you. Alright, Jarvan, get in there and do your thing. To the window, to the wall. He says to the flag, and that's what I immediately think of. Get the little John coming out here. To the window, to the wall. Let the sweat drip down my balls. Oh, skeet skeet, motherfucker. Oh, skeet skeet, goddamn. Classic. Classic wordsmith in Lil Jon. But this seems pretty good for us. He's only got 2 mana, so he probably can't stop our Garen. Garen flipping is going to give us the rallies for next turn, and that's what we should need to close out the game. And this kind of naturally illustrated the historic problem with elites, right? Opponent has been putting a bunch of shitty units on the board. He's just coming in and blocking our biggest bro, only taking 3 or 4 points of damage on each attack, and then still getting to do whatever his deck wants to do. But now that we have the rallies, he has to do an exceptionally larger amount of work in order to kill off our units and prevent the damage. sweat dripping down my balls right now. You know what I'm saying? Just drop it right on him. But this is fine. We're going to be dropping both removal spells before we attack. We probably won't win the game on this turn. We're looking to win on next turn if we can get an open attack on the next round. So what's he got here? 2 damage darkness. This damage is pretty ignorable. He's not playing the Shadow Isles version here. We don't have to worry about... oh, he's playing... I'm sorry, he's playing Nora. He's not playing Tristana. It's still not a lot to worry about. Like Lord Broadmane would be the big reason for him to be making attacks here. And we can kill the Lord Broadmane before he causes problems. So that's probably where we'll want to be. I don't think we want to drop a Concerted Strike here. Well, Lord Broadmane costs 6 mana. He's not going to get the attack in. Probably still more worthwhile to hold on to the Concerted Strike, though. But the kind of rise of Lord Broadmane, if you will, is one of the reasons I'm a little interested in coming towards the elites as opposed to something like Gangplank Sejuani. Gangplank Sejuani is so tied into the champions that it's kind of scary to enter a format with a bunch of Lord Broadmanes and Scorched Earths and Disintegrates and the like, because the deck can't really win the game without the champions, whereas this deck can. This is much easier when we have Garen and Jarvan running around, but it's still very capable of having a Battlesmith into a unit, into a Vanguard Bannerman, and then just having so many stats that the champions aren't a requirement. And so when you look at the flip side at like Gangplank Sejuani, they're like, oh boy, I'm gonna drop a bunch of tutus onto the board and hope for the best. Maybe the Spirits Unleashed will help carry them up in size, but the units are most certainly worse than what you get out of the elites. Doing something. What's this? Is going to be a Scorched Earth? Drop the bomb. Ravenous Flock. Okay. RIP Garen. You fought hard. You fought strong. You did a lot. I don't want you to feel like your services are unwarranted and unneeded. All right, not bad. Nothing's really coming to mind as to what he'd be able to stop this with. We got a pretty good hit with the double portals, but hopefully we're just too far ahead. I mean, do we want to just start playing cards? I do worry about like Lord Broadmane coming in and causing a problem, but that is kind of worrisome. The more I think on it, the less I like it. Just attacking. Like if opponent's going to have a hard time like still winning the game on the next turn from there, but it's a spot to where if that attack isn't successful, we don't have our Garen anymore to give us the rally for the next turn, and then we can struggle to win even 2 turns from there. All right, next battle. So this is interesting. There's a couple of spaces in here that I'm kind of flexing right now. I'm not certain if I would prefer to play 2 copies of Ranger's Resolve and only 1 copy of Deny. As you'll see in a lot of these games, and what I used to talk about an absolute ton in the Times of Expedition, is the way that a lot of these games go is turn 1, you may or may not have a play. Turn 2, you probably have a play. Turn 3, you probably have a play. And then from like turn 4 on, you typically spend all of your mana on units. And so over the course of the game, you might generate, between like 2 and 3 spell mana. And then throughout the rest of the game, you don't want to find yourself in a spot to where you have to decide if I want to play a spell or play a unit. You want to be able to do both in the same turn. So you're not just getting left behind as to like, okay, do I get to play Garen this turn? Or do I have to stop and really play this like sharp sight and really stay behind in terms of mana? And that's where Ranger's Resolve really does wonders, and why I was actually like really happy with Radiant Strike in Expedition, given that you could get all of the cards on board and then still have that little bit of mana left for interactivity. And so I think we will see a lot of pretty interesting and strong situations to where we do want to get that like little extra bit of mana. And I'm curious if I would rather have the more consistent options in drawing the more consistent options in drawing the Ranger's Resolve, or if we want that big protection spell in the Deny. Well, this shit's annoying. we're gonna get 3-for-1 off this favorite artisan. At least he didn't put the equipment on before the forge hit. I think we're not stuck. There's no reason to single combat here. We can still just attack and see if he blocks, and if he does, we'll have the mana for the single combat later. So I'm going to hold this Vanguard Defender back. I don't think that there's a lot of reason to be playing it here. It's not going to do a ton. What just happened to us would have been the reason to play it, but we're getting to the point to where maybe we should have played it, but then we were just kind of behind on not having single combat mana anymore. That's tough. No, I was too busy talking, and we probably should have single combated down this Saga Seeker before he had the chance to play a spell on it. Now it's a problematic size at this point. Much better if we could have taken it down as a 1/1. Like if he has the Troll Chant here, the Troll Chant's not going to kill our units. So that's what happens when you get to chit-chatting sometimes, you know. That's what happens. But here, this is interesting. Like, we're going to want to champion strength. And if we're going to champion strength, we want to have a bunch of stats to go along with it. And so only champion strengthening 2 units doesn't feel very good. But I kind of feel like we can 4 Demacia this turn, get in a good combat, get a single combat after the combat. Next turn, we can look to just add the Vanguard Defender, bank up 3 mana, and then follow up with the champion strength. I think this will all work out kind of nicely here. The thing we would get blown up on is if he has the Frostbite. He does not. All right, battle time. Comes in. Interesting. Just getting a trade isn't terrible, but I can't imagine he just blocks and loses, though. Okay. Kind of annoying now that his Saga Seeker can take down the Vanguard Sergeant. I think it's okay to just skip over this. Like this unit is getting big. This is probably our mistake of the game, but I'm just kind of eyeballing this as being like, well, he's not going to be able to lethal us here. And so if we can come into the next turn with more units on board, then we should be able to overcome with the champion's strength. So Pantheon, he is bigger than what we're offering up. He's not, like, scary, though. Well, he is scary that he hit Challenger. So we're going to lose a 3-3. Surprised to see him coming in with Saga Seeker.
You don't scare me.
Well, let's single combat away the unit that's going to die anyways. All right, let's see if Champion Strength can do it. I don't have big faith in this one. I'm not super excited about it, but it seems better than dropping Jarvan 3. Not even by much. But we're at least presenting a lot of damage, and I guess if we end up trading away 2 of these units for Pantheon, it's not terrible. Let's turn the tide, bro. Here comes the damage. Here comes the damage. Because I wonder if opponent's in a spot to where he's like, well, can I even win the game without Pantheon? Interesting.
A noble end.
Well, he didn't play anything there. We're definitely bringing it. Ooh, and his Pantheon falls. That's nice. And the Sparkle Fly. It's got some stats. It's got some stats.
How will my people remember me?
And Jarvan's not even big enough for the takedown. Pantheon Part 2. He did manage to hit Spell Shield on there as well. It's a real pain in the dick. He had basically everything on this one. I guess he doesn't have lifesteal, which is nice for opponent, but
Not my first fight.
all right. So we could have thrown Jarvan in front of him. The ideal thing with throwing Jarvan in front is we get to prevent a bunch of damage on this upcoming turn. So we don't get that damage prevention, and so if we don't either win the game this turn or kill this Sparkle Fly, then we're going to lose the game. As to where if we had blocked with King Jarvan in front of Pantheon, we'd have prevented 6 or 7 more damage and been a little bit safer in that sense. But it seems like we're in an okay-ish spot. Got the takedown on Pantheon. That's good. Now we get the Cataclysm of Jarvan into the Sparkle Fly. Well, we were going to. I think we still need to. He gets the barrier, so it's not like he's going to die in this combat. Does he not get the barrier if he's not challenging something? Challenging the strongest enemy. When I challenge an enemy, give me barrier. And so I think that's where we still need to go.
Just as you were taught. By his breath.
The spell shield's gone. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So we'll just have to have something weird happen next turn. If we get to champion strength our Jarvan, we can single combat down the Sparkle Fly. Stranger things have happened. That was weird. I feel like if I was giving that one my full attention, we could have probably had a little bit more success there, but that was a little sloppy. I think that game came down to us not playing our single combat on that Saga Seeker, and then it just like ate 3 units. That's at least like a good illustration of what the Elites deck is trying to do to your opponent, as to where we get a unit that's just, a little bit bigger than the opponent, and then they're just like, fuck, I gotta involve like 2 and 3 cards in this takedown, or I just lose to it, And so having that come up is at least a nice illustration of what's going on there. All right, perfect pickup with this Vanguard Squire. This is a pretty reasonable draw against Anivia. We can spew a ton of stats at her very quickly.
A real battle.
See if those denies come into play up against the Harrowings. Ooh, the perfect draw in Battlesmith. Assuming he doesn't have a Quietus or whatever, we get to play the boosted Vanguard Defender, the boosted Squire next turn, then all of the units with the Bannerman 2 turns from now. This is just the the highest stat draw you can pull off with this deck, unless you have the Ram Hound instead of Cythria. That would give us a couple of extra points of stats.
Still so much to learn.
All right, here comes the squad. Feral Mystic coming at us. And so I think we just want a succession. There's not a ton that we can play next turn, but I think it'll still be safe to get the Bannerman down. Like if he wants to come at us with Anivia, that's okay. And then we still have the mana to interact with her if we need to.
Soldiers, to me!
The spirit of winter awakens.
I'm gonna keep the Cythria back now that we've picked up the champion's strength. I think that we're gonna want to save it. Make sure that we can play it 2 turns from now. Just have that extra unit for the big spell.
I bring the storm.
All right, that doesn't kill anything. That's fine. Because Anivia hasn't gotten any ways to die, so it's a little bit tougher for her to bring the combos back. I'd imagine if he had like a soul cleave or something, he would have done that before combat. Yeah. All right. So how bad is this gonna be? We can take down the egg with the single combat, but then we can't play champion strength anymore. Alright, well. He's still at least kind of far away from doing anything with it. It's just tough, though, now. Is like our board sucks, but it's like if we play champion strength, we just end up losing to a harsh winds. Rekindler's fine. We can still at least get a big turn with the 4 Demacia, and hopefully be able to get around some of this stuff here soon.
Courage, soldier!
What's this? He was thinking of doing something before combat. Soul Cleave. Yeah, that's pretty painful. I think we're boomed. I think we're done. Interesting. Interesting. Oh boy.
Then kindle anew.
I guess the champion strength isn't gonna do it. All right, we'll get that out of here. GG. Not sure if we would have been able to do that. Like we were close to single combat mana there. We had 1 left at the end of the turn. Like I don't think we would have gotten there with the single combat onto the what's he called? The single combat onto the Rekindler. But that's the kind of classic problem that these decks run into is you're not like super fast. They have the opportunity to just kind of like block around and just fuck around and then get to pull off their really big and high valued play. Same thing applies here with Heimerdinger Jace. This is probably the worst matchup that we can come up against, but I think it shows a bit of the downside of the Elites deck in that some of these matchups aren't spectacular. I still think it's in a pretty good space. I don't really envision there being too much along the lines of the Anivia deck in the Runeterra Open, but Heimerdinger Jace is something that's kind of on the table there. Like you just know it doesn't feel good when when you have that really high-powered draw and then your opponent's basically able to ignore it and still pull off the victory. Like if your deck's doing the absolute best thing that it can and that's not enough, That's a fairly challenging place to be in. Now here, this is always the question up against Heimerdinger Jace. Are they going to play the Shock Blast or are they going to play the Production Surge? We can't beat a Shock Blast. If we're just going to like play the Vanguard Defender and push on, it's kind of whatever. Oh, he takes the third option and then just have nothing play. And that one works out nicely for our team. That one works out nicely. But again, I think we play fine into the Production Surge. We play poorly into the Shock Blast. But if we're just going to sit around and not do anything, we're not going to win the game. And so I think it's best just to add the dude and hope, you got to squeeze them cheeks every once in a while. hope that it's enough.
Discipline and steel.
Interesting pass. I mean, he has an expensive card with the Pharaoh's Fancier. I'm curious if he just has like a Vengeance at this point, and it's only a 6th cost spell, and he can't pull anything off with it. Yeah, this draw is just incredibly awkward. Okay, well, I'll take it. Take those little victories where we can get them. Now that's interesting, picking up the Vanguard Bannerman, because it's going to be tough to get a very good Garen out of these upcoming turns. And we just get so many more stats if we add in Cythria than add in the Bannerman. Because the way that you want Garen to work is you want Garen to get the strike on your opponent's turn. So he has one, comes back to your turn, and you get another strike at the flip. And then as your opponent's next turn comes around, you get the third combat. And with the way our hand is set up here, that's just not going to play out. We're going to... say we play Garen here, he's going to get the strike. Next turn, we could get a strike with the single combat. That's how I'm looking to ensure we get our Garen to flip. But then on the following turn, we're getting a rally at the start of our own turn. That doesn't really do anything. So I want our stuff to do stuff, So this is the question, though, is that do we want to single combat now because he has Heimerdinger on the board? We probably need to. I'm not excited about the Donger just hanging out. Let's pass for the moment and see how bad this can be. We could have single combated in the middle of combat, but it's like I don't want him to hit a Mystic shot onto our Vanguard Sergeant and then prevent the damages and whatnot. All right, so yeah, maybe that wasn't ideal with Garen, but we're out here learning and stuff. That's all that matters, right? Let's just pass. If we take a big bank of the mana, then we can protect ourselves with Deny. If he plays a big spell here, then we'll just Deny and be done with it. But it feels like if we play Garen and then he has Vengeance, it's just playing into his strengths. Okay. Trusty Ramhound. Car Ramrod coming at you. I haven't seen Super Troopers in so long. I haven't seen old Car Ramrod coming out here, and so maybe we'll have to track that one down. I don't know if Super Troopers has gotten canceled or not. I haven't seen any of their movies recently. I feel like I saw Beer Fest most recently out of those guys' movies, and I think it still held up. I don't remember really like cringing at any point. I think I feel like in those movies there's like a 90% plus chance there's at least like one cringe moment that didn't survive the didn't survive the times, but I think overall it wasn't that bad. All right, that's a lethal. GG. Able to take it down. Look at that. Bringing out the denies. It feels good, man. It feels good. I have considered if I would prefer to be playing Rite of Negation, right? That's a very real question. Would you rather have Rite of Negation as you look to play against something like Seraphine? Then you can kind of counterspell off like 5 or 6 spells all at once, or the more common problematic kind of thing is if they're going to disintegrate plus kill spell onto your unit, and then is deny enough just onto the disintegrate, or would we rather play the Rite of Negation that can clear out everything? With the downside being is you have to sacrifice off units and mana gems, and I feel like I would probably just rather play deny. Like if we were playing a really really aggressive style deck that gets to turn 7 and doesn't care about mana gems anymore, then sure, Rite of Negation's probably on point. But it's just like as we have a deck with champion strength in it, and wanting to be in these spots to where we can play Garen and a card, and then next turn play Jarvan 3, and then the next turn play Jarvan 4. That worries me a little bit in the sense of getting rid of those mana gems. All right, let's get some units on board. This is kind of interesting coming up against Annie Katarina as to whether or not we want to drop the Ram Hound. Like, we're only getting like 1 point of damage this turn. I think I'm going to go ahead and drop it just because, like, if he plays Annie here, then we want to be able to kind of get in front of Annie and have the 3/3 to stop her from getting her level ups and stuff. This is a control deck. This isn't a aggro deck coming at us, so it's not super scary to take the Annie damage, but it's nice to present that we can get in front of it and stop it. I think I'm still just going to go for stats here, though. I'm going to drop in the Battlesmith. Feel like this is the unit that calls out the Mystic Shot, but sometimes you don't have it. We got a lot of that today, I guess. Sometimes you just don't have it.
Ready for deployment.
All right, stats locked and loaded. But see, this space here is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of, do we want to play 2 Rangers Resolves and only 1 copy of Deny? If you look at our curve here, we want to play the Swiftwing Flight next turn. That's probably wants to generate a 4-cost card. Now that we want to play a 4-cost card on turn 5, that does give us that window to get up to 2 mana for something like Single Combat, but we're not really getting to that window to where we could play Deny. I guess we could pivot to where we just say pick a Fleet Feather Tracker off of the Swiftwing Flight, but it doesn't all work out nicely. The Shock Blast. Shock Blast doesn't kill our defender. I don't know if he realizes that. Let's just go ahead and take down the Annie. Get these shenanigans out of here. Don't think the Swiftwing Flight needs to come down immediately. Now the next bit of interesting is he doesn't have a ton of ways to deal 1 point of damage, right? He's gonna have like static shocks, but he's not playing Twisted Fate, right? This isn't any Twisted Fate, Katarina, Twisted Fate, Swain. There's no Twisted Fate in the opposing deck, and so it's not as scary just having a bunch of 1 health units here. I don't think they have too many ways to. Oh, they do play. I gotta stop that thought. They do play that one thing. That what do you call it? The thing with flow, and it does a point of damage to everything. They do have AoEs. At this point, it only kills the Ram Hound, but we gotta watch ourselves a little bit for that. All right, here comes the combat squad. There it is. Caustic Riff. It came to me. But not bad. I mean, it only killed one unit, and then it put some damage on the other ones for sure, but not terrible. I wonder if he'll kill something off and let us get this big Radiant Guardian on the board. We haven't taken too much damage, but if the Radiant Guardian does get to prevent, gain like 4 or 6 health, it can do wonders in terms of shutting down these other decks. I think we're just going to go ahead and play her, though. My concern with this board is that it really just reads like we're going to run into another Caustic Riff. And I think we want to play the Radiant and then just open attack next turn. So when we open attack, the Jarvan will come on the board, threaten to deal a bunch of damage. Interesting, interesting. Guy only costs 2. He hit it on the drum solo.
Virtue guides me.
All right. Well, the thing to watch on this turn is we need to hook Dum Dum here. If we hook the Aloof Travelers, Jarvan will still come down and attack and threaten in this lethal. I don't think we ever get the lethal here, but we don't want to attack with everybody and then have Jarvan hit the Aloof Travelers. We're really missing out on a ton of damage. Damage is all that matters here. Not playing for value at this point. Yeah, look at all these cards. How cool would a Rite of Negation be at this moment as we see our opponent line up 4 separate cards? If we'd just be able to drop the Rite of Negation, shut all this nonsense down, partake in victory. Man, that's tough. I'm really thinking, because my idea for seasonals is the intended ban is Nora. If Nora is here, I look to take her down. The next thing after Nora is kind of up in the air. I feel like we have a nice balanced lineup to where it's not the end of the world to... we're damage short of killing this thing.
Ready to do my part.
It's not the end of the world to really like face down anything, but the Nora go wide strategies are what's going to typically cause us problems. And
I'll write my own story.
I think with her there, that does leave a lot of like Twisted Fates and Swains and things like that up on board. Probably should just switch to the Rite of Negation. All right, let's see how that goes. Sometimes you just draw the big spell. I mean, he dropped his big flurry of shit on the previous turn, and so hopefully he doesn't have nearly as much here. He's already played 2 Caustic Rifts. I don't know if High Note is active, but he played 2 High Notes last turn. Oh my god. Okay, well, when you see that they can respond with 3 separate spells after playing 4 spells on the previous turn, probably just done. We'll see where this goes. So we only have 5 attack Cythrias at this point, not enough to take down a Tybalak. Well, let's continue on. Oh, they are big enough, my bad.
Let the bloodshed begin.
Charge?
Alright, coming in. Man, that game, I'm so glad we saw this. This is like definitely the space I'm thinking of. Oh my god, so you really have Disintegrate as the last card? It's a Blade's Edge. Oh, no, it is the Disintegrate. Alright. I think that's what I'm wanting to do. I'm gonna go and switch. That's what we're gonna do for the rest of the video. Don't call it pink, call it brown for the rest of the way. Alright. Are we yellow elites now? Is it brown? I feel like brown is always funnier because it sounds like poop, right? But I guess Bilgewater would be the brown faction and Shurima are the yellow. And so It's tough. But yeah, that game was exactly the space. Now, hopefully, as we play this game, we'll find ourselves in the spot where we churn off a mana gem and have everything just go wrong. But there are the other kind of thing is there are some kind of interesting spots to where you can Rite of Negation and get a little bit of value out of it, in the sense that you do want to sacrifice off that unit, and so it may be a space to where, say you're like blocking a Katarina, and you don't want them to get the flip, and so you block with a unit and sacrifice the unit so they don't get the strike. It's not, very common. It's kind of a fringe strategy, but if you're able to, get in front of a lifesteal unit, you can have some magic happen there. If you're able to, prevent strikes, it's not irrelevant being able to sacrifice off a unit to prevent an effect. No attack? Says, I don't want it. I don't want any of those, I don't want any of those hallowed bonuses. All right, here it comes. I'm gonna keep sending these 3 attackers in. Say you don't get Gwen until next turn. So here comes the squad. Gotta have a combat trick here, right? A Twin Disciplines or something, but this is what elites are trying to do. What? He doesn't go for the trade? He just goes for the damage prevent? The Black Flame. Okay. I like what you're about, my dude. I like it.
Where they fall, freedom grows.
So we'll get multiple attacks in on this round. This is tough. This is tough. Like, this is where we really want to be playing either a 4 Demacia next turn. But we don't have the mana for it.
A line around me.
You will not prevail.
For my homeland.
Alright, well, let's take some blocks, though. He drops a combat trick on us. It's not the end of the world. We do kind of want to play the Swiftwing Flight next turn. The thing that starts to scare you as you look to play a card like Swiftwing Flight is if he has Defiant Dance and bounces back a unit, or any Blade Dance, right? And gets to send some of the damages back to, gets to send more attacks in with the Black Flame. He doesn't get the Blade Dance since he played the Syncopate. That's fine. So do we want to go for the Swiftwing Flight? It's just such a big play. I mean, where are we at? How much is this? It's close to lethal. Let's see if we can get him to spend some mana. We have the Rite of Negation. We should be able to just win the game with it, right? Like, if he plays a unit, we can still get around all this stuff. Right, here's a nice collection of damage. 11 into 10. We just take it. All right. GG. It was the Rite of Negation. That's what did it. That's what did it. The brown elites coming at you. Oh, no title. You'll need titles on this account. Got a cat behind me. You can see him back here. I saw him in the little video thing. Probably upset. He doesn't want to hang out. That's the weight loss cat. That's the all black one. Poor guy. Poor guy got a little chunky, so we got him on the weight loss plan. It's tough. He's got to wait. I've got their food on timers now. So I don't know how he got to be so big. I feel like we gave him a responsible amount of food, but it's tough when you have 3 cats and you don't want the other cats to go hungry, because Tubbo back here decided Tubbo back here decided that he was gonna eat all the food. All right, though. Back to the action. Let's see what we can do here. It'd be nice to take down Master Yi with just a single combat. It's kind of tough to do. He's got a bunch of mana for combat tricks and everything, but I feel like we might be able to get something happening here. I wonder if we should have played these in the other order. Like, we haven't given him any Mystic Shot bait yet, and so he was just kind of free to shoot down the Ramhound, to where if we played the Cythria first, maybe he would have gone for it. I don't know. Cythria is not exciting on this board. She doesn't really represent a good attack. Everybody else is a good attack, since the defender can attack and not die. Then, of course, the 3/3s are going to do a 2/3. But if we had that additional 3/3 in the Ramhound, a lot better offering on the board. All right.
Now, is that all?
Let's he's gonna do some Master Yi shit. He's got 6 mana. There's a ton of stuff he could do here, but I think we're okay to just kind of let things go. If he doesn't get like too involved. Although we're probably not going to find a better single combat target. All right. Oh, this is the wrong one. I think. Well, this is actually interesting. As we're playing against a deck that has recalls in it, or the potential to have recalls in it, I should say. We have to kind of consider which unit we want to have die here, and I think this is probably who we want to have die, right? When the Squire comes back to your hand, I think it resets, and you have to spend the full mana again, to where we're not just getting the free the extra 4 Demacia.
I'll do my best.
All right. Lethal presented. He can get out of it just with 1 card. If he stops the Vanguard Sergeant, that'll drop him to 1. But we got a pretty commanding position on the board. All right, not bad, not bad. Jumping on into that final battle. See how it goes. It's been an interesting set. I don't know if it's just because we're in Platinum, but a lot of the really popular decks of the meta right now haven't shown up. We haven't seen Rise. We haven't seen the Tristanas. We've only seen 1 Nora. So kind of interesting in that sense, but been a worthwhile adventure. Jace Elise Vi is the Sentinels deck. This is plays the 1-cost Sentinel and the Buru Sentinel, and it looks to grow them up with the removal spells. It's not. We're not playing against the Heimerdinger Jace from earlier, where they were playing turrets.
Come closer. I don't bite.
Sturdy blades, custom made.
Steady Blades, custom made, bro. A little bit awkward with the mana, but is what it is. I think we just want to take all of this. I'm not quite ready to have a unit die to Vile Feast and then have him get the big Burgeoning Sentinel. And so we'll play it just a little bit slow. I was hoping we would come up with another cheap unit so we could get the Squire going a little bit better, but not the case. Not the case. Oh, man. We did have the mana for it. Well, I was like, oh, this is going to cost 3 mana. Never getting this on board. So let's go ahead and play it. Now, should we have played that before? Yes. The thing I like to say about this is it's very easy to start getting in the mindset to where it's like, uh-oh, You as a viewer just saw me fuck up, and now I have to come up with some kind of way to make this look like, oh, look how big brained I am. That was intentional. That's not what we want to be having happen. We got to just turn this around and say, okay, I'm going to I'm just going to fix this and move forward. So now, are we okay with this? I think we just have to let it go. We do have the right of negation to potentially get out of it, but what would be a disaster is if we say, okay, I'm going to right of negation this, and then I'm going to look to then say I'm going to look to like get hate spiked. So we'll just give up on that angle. We're still doing pretty fine here. We have a pretty big board. Move on. But no, that's it's not fancy play syndrome. That's where you're trying to impress your friends with your big brain. It's another angle of the big brainness that you're trying to show off. But it's a space to where you know that you're sitting there at the event and your friends are behind you watching you play because you're in there for the top cut because you're the best in the world, and then you run into a spot to where you mess up. You say, oh no, I've made a boo boo, I've made a whoopsies, I've made a mistake. I can't let my friends know how dumb I am. and so you start to really make exotic plays to cover up your mess up and make it look like you intended to do it. Don't do that. Just say to yourself, okay, I messed up. Let's move on. Let's move forward, and not let it affect me in that way. Interesting hook. I did not expect this. I thought he was going to play Vi and hook something smaller. Getting a trade doesn't feel spectacular. All right, but we're nice and protected here now. I don't think we need to worry too much in this space. Got that Herida negation. Look at that. Look at that. Got crystals and stuff in the hand. So, all right, not a bad set of games. Nice little 5-3 record, and we can pull this up and talk about it a little bit more. And so, I liked a lot of what is going on here. Again, I mentioned this deck. It has that feel to it like Gangplank Sejuani, as to where it doesn't crush anything, right? It doesn't have any of these 65 and 70, 75% win rate matchups, but it doesn't get just crushed by anything else either. It is a little bit more polarized than you would see coming out of Gangplank Sejuani, where like Gangplank Sejuani was this kind of like really tight space of being like a 48 to 52% against like everything. This deck expands out like a little bit further to where it's like 55 to 60 for the good ones, 40 or 45 to 40% on the bad end, but those are all very winnable matches. It's not anything to where you queue up and to say, oh, fuck, I can't actually win this one today. And so I'm very interested there. I like a lot of the things that are going on with this. And then what I kind of expect to see coming out of this format are going to be a lot of Tristanas and a lot of Noras. And I think that this deck, it's not incredibly ideal in the sense that your opponent does get the chance to shut down a lot of what you're doing, right? They have that big board mindset to where they can come out and block over and over again, but those blockers tend to be pretty terrible, and they don't stop you from doing what Elites wants to do. And so I think that those are all like reasonable and fine matchups for this deck. The thing you don't really want to be running into are going to be like the Twisted Fate Swains of the world. Those decks, when they like say, okay, here's a House Spider and I have a good removal spell for your Garen and I can shut down your expensive stuff. It is much scarier than those protecting yourself with unit style decks. And so I think it has a pretty good space. I'm not 100% sold on all of the numbers. Like we have the one Radiant Guardian, which I don't feel like may or may not be necessary. And then I mentioned the Ranger's Resolve, which he actually didn't draw today in comparison with the Deny. As it stands, I might just cut out this Radiant Guardian for another Ranger's Resolve. But in a lot of my practice games, I felt like I was in the spot to where we just didn't have enough value. I needed just like a little bit more value to help push me through these games. Because if you weren't drawing Jarvan, or if you weren't drawing Jarvan, if you weren't, I should rephrase that, as if you weren't drawing Jarvan 3 or you weren't drawing Jarvan 4, then it felt like you were kind of lacking. In a lot of these games, we did have that Garen into Jarvan curve, and we had a lot of our Jarvans get knocked away with the cycle card, whatever the 4 mana Bandle City unit is. And so I'm kind of curious if, we were just kind of high rolling in that sense. And so it's like, I just want that like little bit more touch of value, but you also have these draws to where you don't do anything fast enough. And so that's why you're seeing the single copy of Succession in here, as I kind of decided that I would rather just have something to do early, as opposed to run the risk of not having enough value. And so there is a bit of flex in here. I don't have all of the answers. I need to figure that out over the next couple of days before we dive into the Runeterra Open. But, this is a pretty good start. I think that there's a lot of good going on here. And I do think that we're going to really enjoy the Axe Deny. The Deny is out of here. We're really going to enjoy this Rite of Negation and get a lot of success out of it as well. And so, good stuff. I had fun with that. I hope you did too, because that is going to do it for us today. And so, hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way and had a good time watching. This is Bustin' Me. Thank you for being here.